Let me talk to the student in you, the warrior, the dreamer, the one who's been sitting in front of books, videos, lectures, overwhelmed by the pressure to perform, to achieve, to not let anyone down. You've got goals, ambitions, maybe even a vision that keeps you up at night. But let me tell you this, studying isn't just about marks, it's about mastery. It's about unlocking the greatness God already placed inside of you. Because yes, you were created to win, you were created to grow, to rise, to shine. You see, discipline is spiritual, focus is sacred, and every time you open that book, every time you fight the urge to scroll and choose purpose over distraction, you're honoring your potential. You're not just cramming facts. You're preparing your mind for leadership, for influence, for legacy. So this isn't just a study guide, it's a transformation. In this video, I'm going to break down the viral techniques that didn't just get me straight A's, they've rewired my mindset, helped me take control of my time, my focus, and my future. These aren't just tips, they're tools for elevation. If you've ever doubted your ability to succeed, if you've ever felt too lazy, too distracted, too behind, stay with me. Because by the end of this message, you're not just going to learn how to study, you're going to believe again in why you started. Let's begin. We've all been there, staring at the same page for hours, rereading it over and over, convincing ourselves we're studying, when in reality, nothing is sticking. The truth is, passive reading gives you the illusion of understanding, but it doesn't challenge your brain to grow. That's where active recall comes in, and it changed everything for me. It's not just a study trick, it's a discipline that transforms how your mind works. Active recall means pulling information out of your memory without looking at your notes. It's hard, it feels uncomfortable, but that discomfort, that's where the magic is. When you force your brain to remember, you create strong neural pathways. You're not just memorizing, you're owning the knowledge. Instead of reading a chapter 5 times, I'd read it once, close the book, and write down everything I could remember. Sometimes I'd teach it to an imaginary class or record myself explaining it and play it back. That's when I noticed real results, not just higher grades, but deeper understanding. The difference was incredible. I wasn't just passing exams, I was building confidence. Every time I recalled something correctly, I felt a spark of belief in myself grow strong. And every time I got it wrong, it showed me exactly where to improve. I wasn't scared of forgetting anymore. I saw it as part of the process. There's power in that. Science backs it up too. Studies show that active recall is one of the most effective learning methods, outperforming rereading and highlighting by a long shot. It's efficient, time-saving, and long-lasting. And it's free. No fancy tools needed, just commitment. But for me, it also became spiritual, because God doesn't bless laziness, He blesses effort. He says in Proverbs, "The soul of the diligent shall be made rich." Active recall is diligence in action. It's saying, I'm going to do this the hard way, because I know that's where growth happens. It's trusting that every time you challenge your brain, you're honoring the sound mind God gave you. And if you've ever felt like you weren't smart enough, let me remind you, your intelligence isn't fixed. It's forged, built, strengthened. One recall session at a time. Keep showing up, keep pulling that knowledge out, because it's in you. You just have to activate it. When you ever sit down to study, full of energy, ready to take on the world, and 15 minutes in, you're checking your phone, drifting off, wondering what's in the fridge. Yeah, I've been there too, until I discovered something so simple, so viral, and yet so powerful that it flipped the way I study completely. It's called the Pomodoro technique. Now, I know you've probably heard the term floating around on TikTok or YouTube, but let me tell you what makes it so effective. It's not just about setting a timer. It's about working with your brain, not against it. The Pomodoro technique trains your mind to stay focused in short, intense bursts of time, usually 25 minutes of full concentration, followed by a 5-minute break. And that 25-minute window? It's a sweet spot for attention span, You don't feel overwhelmed, but you still make serious progress. I started using it during my exam season when burnout was knocking at my door. I'd tell myself, just one Pomodoro, just 25 minutes, and I'd dive in. No distractions, no multitasking, just deep, uninterrupted focus. Then came the break, a walk, some deep breaths, maybe a stretch, and suddenly I was ready to go again. Not dragging, not bored, ready. I found myself doing 4, 5, even 6 Pomodoros a day and feeling less exhausted than when I used to study for hours with no structure. It built momentum, it gave my brain room to breathe, and it created a rhythm that made study feel less like a chore and more like a mission. But here's the real win. Those breaks, they're where clarity comes. Sometimes I'd step away from a tough chapter, take 5 minutes, and come back with a fresh mind and a solution I couldn't see before. That's no accident. That's how the brain works. It processes in rest as much as it does in effort. Spiritually, I started to realize this mirrors how we're designed. Even God, in his creation of the world, worked and then rested. The Sabbath isn't laziness, it's wisdom. And the Pomodoro technique follows that divine rhythm. Work with focus, rest with intention. So, if you're tired of burnout, if your brain feels scattered, try it. One Pomodoro at a time. Let your study be sharp, intentional, and human. Your grades will thank you, but more importantly, you will. There's something powerful that happens when you stop trying to cram everything into your brain the night before a test and instead choose to work with your memory, not against it. That's what spaced repetition taught me. It's not just a study trick, it's a mindset shift. You see, most students fall into the trap of overloading themselves, thinking the more they study in one sitting, the more they'll remember. But the brain doesn't operate like that. Real memory, long-term memory, is built through time, through exposure, through repetition that's spaced out strategically. That's what makes this technique so viral and yet so underrated at the same time. When I started using spaced repetition, everything changed. I'd study a concept today, then review it 2 days later, again a few days after that, and once more before the exam. Each time I returned to it, the idea stuck more firmly. It felt like carving that information into my brain, not just scribbling it on the surface. And what's even better? It saved me time. Instead of rereading chapters a dozen times, I was revisiting each concept just a handful of times, but in the right intervals. That's how the memory muscle works. Every review is a signal to your brain, hey, this matters, keep it, and the brain listens. I used flashcards, apps like Anki, and even my own notebook system. I'd write down questions one day, test myself another, and track what I forgot. The material that was hard got more frequent reviews. The stuff I knew well got spaced out. It was tailored, smart, efficient. And slowly, my stress started to melt away. I wasn't anxious the night before the test anymore. I was prepared. Not because I worked harder than everyone else, but because I worked smarter. And on a deeper level, this reminded me of something spiritual. We don't grow from hearing the truth once. We grow from repetition, from being reminded over and over again who we are, what we believe, what matters. Just like we revisit scripture, prayer, or affirmations to build faith and clarity, we revisit knowledge to build mastery. Spaced repetition is more than a study strategy. It's a form of mental stewardship. You're honoring your God-given mind by treating it with respect, with rhythm, with intention. And if you stay consistent, your brain will reward you. Because success isn't about cramming, it's about planting seeds and watering them. Over time, those seeds grow into wisdom that stays with you long after the exams are over. You ever sit with your notes, thinking you've got everything figured out, only to realize when you try to explain it, your mind goes blank? That's where the technique of blurting and brain dumping flipped my entire approach to studying. This viral method doesn't look pretty. It's messy, it's raw, but it's real. The concept is simple. After you study a topic, close the book, grab a blank page, and pour out everything you remember. No looking back, no checking for perfection, just you, your pen, and your mind in motion. That's blurting. And let me tell you, It exposes the truth. Because what you think you know and what you can actually recall are often two very different things. The first time I tried it, I was shocked. I had just studied a full chapter on biology and thought I had it locked down. But when I sat with that blank page, silence. A couple bullet points, some scattered phrases. And that's when I realized I hadn't really learned it, I had just read it. Blurting forces you to confront the gap between reading and retention, and that confrontation? That's where growth begins. It's not about getting it perfect the first time, it's about identifying what's missing so you know exactly what to work on. I made this a habit. After every major study session, I'd blurt. Sometimes I'd do it on a whiteboard, sometimes I'd record a brain dump as a voice note, and over time I noticed something amazing. My recall got faster, my confidence grew. I didn't panic when a test question felt unfamiliar because I had already practiced pulling ideas from a blank space. My brain had been trained under pressure. That's what makes this technique so valuable. It doesn't just test your memory, it trains your expression. And in school, in exams, even in life, it's not enough to know something, you have to be able to communicate it. And here's the deeper layer. Blurting reminds me of how faith works. You don't just absorb truth by hearing it, you strengthen it by speaking it out. When you declare what you know, even if you're unsure, it builds clarity, it builds certainty, it creates alignment between what's inside you and what comes out, and that process, it's spiritual, it's powerful. So, next time you study, don't just read and hope for the best. Shut the book, face the silence, and let your mind speak. You'll be surprised by how much you grow, not just academically, but mentally. Let me tell you about a technique that's not flashy, not viral in the influencer sense, but it's the secret weapon behind so many straight-A students and high performers. Interleaving. Sounds complex, but the concept is simple. It's the art of mixing subjects or topics while you study, instead of blocking out long hours for just one. And I know, we've all been told to focus on one subject for hours, to finish all of math today and biology tomorrow. But science and real-world results say something different. Interleaving improves your ability to apply knowledge, not just recognize it. It strengthens your brain's ability to switch, connect, and adapt. It makes your learning deeper, not just longer. When I started using interleaving, it felt counterintuitive. I'd go from math for 30 minutes, then jump into chemistry, then revisit history. And yes, in the beginning it felt messy, it felt scattered. But with time, my brain started to build mental flexibility. I wasn't just memorizing formulas in isolation. I was learning how to retrieve them, apply them in different contexts, and switch gears like a pro. That switching? That's where understanding blooms. Because in exams, you're not tested by chapter. You're tested by problem. Real learning doesn't come from repetition alone. It comes from challenge, from context switching, from seeing the same concept in different ways and situations. The real magic of interleaving is that it mirrors how life works. In real life, we're constantly shifting between roles, conversations, problems. So when you train your brain to handle that kind of shift in study, you prepare yourself for more than just tests. You prepare yourself for life's complexity. And if you want to retain knowledge for long-term use, not just for a grade, this is the way to go. Now let's go deeper. Interleaving reminds me of the way God trains us through life. We don't get one lesson at a time neatly packaged. No, we get storms and sunshine, failure and favor, all mixed together. Why? Because growth comes from contrast. It comes from navigating change. Interleaving builds resilience, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. It teaches us that learning isn't linear, it's dynamic, alive. So if you're tired of the traditional study one thing for hours and still forget it routine, try interleaving. Mix it up, shift gears, train your mind to stretch. Because the goal isn't just to pass a test, it's to become someone who can handle complexity, pressure, and change. That's real intelligence. That's real growth. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't come from textbooks or apps, something that hits deeper than any flashcard ever could: the environment you place yourself in. The truth is, your surroundings shape your focus, your energy, and your discipline more than you realize. We think study success is all about intelligence, but half the battle is where and how you choose to show up. You can't expect clarity in the middle of chaos. Expect consistency. When your phone's buzzing, your notifications are firing off, and your space is filled with distractions, the technique that transformed my ability to focus and retain information was this: I engineered my environment for success. It started small. I picked a specific spot: clean, quiet, organized. I told myself, when I sit here, it's game time. That space became sacred. No Netflix, no scrolling, just me, my materials and purpose. I decluttered my desk. I set the lighting just right. I used noise-canceling headphones or ambient music to zone in. I even changed the wallpaper on my laptop to a reminder of my goals. Suddenly, I wasn't forcing focus anymore, it was flowing. My environment was signaling to my brain, this matters, and I responded. But it wasn't just the physical setup. It was the people too. I started surrounding myself, online and offline, with students, creators, and mentors who were driven. People who talked about goals, not gossip. Who shared progress, not procrastination. The more I absorbed that energy, the more I started reflecting it. That's not coincidence. That's design. Proverbs says, walk with the wise and become wise. Your environment preaches to you every day. The question is, what is it saying? When you walk into a gym, your body knows it's time to move. When you walk into a library, your mind knows it's time to think. Create that same atmosphere wherever you study. Let your space speak purpose into you. Let your routine tell your brain this is where transformation happens. Because you're not just trying to get good grades, you're building a lifestyle of discipline, of clarity, of peace. And on a spiritual level, this is stewardship. God gave you a mind that can do amazing things, but you've got to guard it, guide it. Don't expect blessings to flow in the middle of chaos. Set the stage for excellence. Build an atmosphere that aligns with your calling. Because success isn't accidental, it's atmospheric. And when your environment supports your vision, nothing can stop your growth. In the end, it's clear that study success doesn't come from cramming or working harder. It comes from working smarter and aligning your actions with purpose. Active recall, Pomodoro technique, spaced repetition, blurting, interleaving, and an intentional environment all work together to create a holistic approach to learning. Each technique challenges your mind, builds resilience, and promotes deep understanding rather than shallow memorization. But beyond the practical strategies, these methods teach us something greater. They teach us that growth is a process of consistency, discipline, and faith. By showing up with the right mindset, cultivating the right environment, and embracing challenge, you don't just study, you transform. You don't just aim for good grades, you aim for a lifestyle of excellence. So, keep pushing, keep learning, and trust that with each step, you're building not just academic success, but the strength and wisdom to thrive in every area of life.